We've always said that buying a ticket doesn't guarantee you entry into the country, and you have to ensure that you can come in. We have facilitated already even on other events, even with respect to CONCACAF, we have issues when it comes to our Gold Cup, for instance, when Cuba qualifies. We work through the State Department or the equivalent of the State Department in Mexico and Canada to ensure that obviously the people are able to come in. If there's reasons they can't come in, those are nothing to do with the organizers of any event, whether it be a World Cup or Olympics. Those are within the preview of a country.
Millions of football fans are set to travel to North America this summer, all for the beautiful game. But the ugly reality of geopolitics and the Trump administration's aggressive immigration crackdown have led to growing calls for a boycott.
What we are going to witness is a kind of propaganda event for Donald Trump and his policies and what he stands for.
Rafael Pankowski is with the Never Again Association, a Poland-based anti-racism group. He says the tournament will not be safe for visible minorities and will serve to validate Donald Trump's aggressive policies.
Hey, back off!
While the idea to boycott the tournament is not new, it has picked up steam, due in part to Trump's efforts to seize control of Greenland, and after 2 people were killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis.
As a fan, I simply wouldn't go. It's dangerous.
Mark Pieth is a Swiss lawyer who worked closely with FIFA on governance reforms a decade ago. He isn't calling for a boycott per se, but is urging fans to stay away.
It's tragic that we have the US now on the list together with Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, and so on, with autocracies, with dictatorships, and so on. That is just not something we were expecting.
FIFA just threw every 2026 World Cup ticket holder under the bus, and nobody's talking about it. Victor Montagliani, FIFA's own vice president, basically admitted that buying a ticket doesn't guarantee you'll actually get into the United States to watch the game. Think about that for a second. You could drop thousands on World Cup tickets, book flights, arrange hotels, and still get turned away at the border because of Trump's immigration policies. This isn't some random official making excuses. This is FIFA's second in command essentially saying, not our problem when it comes to fan access. Remember when Sepp Blatter warned everyone that giving the World Cup to America was dangerous? Well, Montagliani just proved him right. The warning timeline, from Blatter to boycotts. Sepp Blatter saw this coming years ago. The former FIFA president warned that American political instability would create exactly these kinds of problems for international tournaments. Everyone dismissed him as a corrupt old man trying to stay relevant, but here we are with FIFA officials admitting they can't guarantee basic fan access. Blatter specifically pointed to America's militarized immigration policing and unpredictable foreign policy as red flags for hosting a global event. The man was corrupt as hell, but he understood geopolitics better than anyone gave him credit for. He knew that American visa walls and travel restrictions would eventually collide with FIFA's promise of an inclusive global celebration. Fast forward to today, and we're seeing exactly what Blatter predicted. Germany's Football Association vice president just dropped a bombshell that should terrify FIFA headquarters. He's seriously considering boycotting the 2026 World Cup, comparing the current situation to the 1980 Olympics boycott. When a DFB official starts making those comparisons, you know things have gone completely off the rails. The German revolt isn't happening in isolation either. This is following a clear pattern that started with Trump's threats against Greenland and his tariff wars with European allies. Germany led the mouth-covering protest in Qatar, and they spearheaded the 1980 Olympic boycott. They have precedent for walking away from major sporting events when politics get too toxic. Denmark will be the first domino to fall after Germany makes their move. Trump is literally threatening to annex their territory, so how could they possibly participate in his showcase tournament? The Danish FA is already using diplomatic language about monitoring the sensitive situation. which is code for watching Germany very closely before making their own decision. France is signaling serious reluctance, while other European powers wait to see which way the wind blows. Sky Sports and TalkSport coverage shows UK media taking these boycott threats seriously as credible scenarios, not just political theater. This isn't fringe activism anymore, folks. This is mainstream European football governance questioning whether they can safely participate in America's World Cup. Here's where Montagliani's admission becomes the smoking gun that validates every single boycott threat we've been covering. FIFA's own vice president just confirmed that tickets don't guarantee entry, which means European teams and fans have legitimate safety and access concerns. You can't dismiss boycott threats as overreaction when FIFA officials are admitting they can't protect international visitors. The domino effect is already starting. European teams aren't just worried about their fans getting denied entry. They're looking at practical scenarios where German supporters get turned away at customs while their team plays in front of empty American stadiums. That's not the World Cup experience anyone signed up for. Think about how this would work in practice. A German fan buys a $1,000 ticket, flies 8 hours to America, and gets denied entry because their name matches someone on a watch list, or they visited the wrong country 5 years ago. FIFA's response? Sorry, we sold you access to the tournament, not guaranteed entry to the host country. That's not a bug in the system, that's the entire system working as designed. The financial implications are staggering too. Corporate sponsors like Coca-Cola and McDonald's paid premium rates expecting European participation and passionate fan attendance. If half the traditional football powers walk away, these companies have legitimate grounds to demand refunds or terminate their agreements entirely. But here's what makes this different from Qatar's human rights controversy. European governments aren't dealing with abstract moral objections to a host country. They're dealing with direct threats to their sovereignty and economic punishment from someone who's supposed to be an ally. Trump's aggressive foreign policy is creating the exact conditions that make boycotts not just possible, but likely. Canada and Mexico, the safe haven solution. While Europe threatens to walk away from Trump's chaos, Mark Carney is positioning Canada as the stable diplomatic alternative, and it's working brilliantly. Carney's leveraging his connections with European leaders to create what insiders are calling a safe haven narrative for relocated World Cup matches. This isn't just political theater, folks. FIFA is quietly exploring Plan B scenarios, and those scenarios heavily feature Vancouver, Toronto, Mexico City, and Monterrey as backup venues. The math here is simple. Canada and Mexico were already hosting 26 of the 104 World Cup matches. But if European teams refuse to play on US soil, those countries can absorb the relocated fixtures without breaking a sweat. The infrastructure already exists. Both countries have proven World Cup-ready stadiums and logistics from previous tournaments. Mexico hosted in 1970 and 1986. Canada co-hosted the Women's World Cup just last year. They know how to do this. Mexican officials are leveraging their World Cup experience and anti-Trump sentiment to capture more games. Mexico has never been shy about criticizing Trump's immigration policies and border wall rhetoric. Now, they're positioning themselves as the alternative that European teams can feel good about supporting. It's diplomatic jiu-jitsu at its finest. Use Trump's own hostility against him to steal his tournament. The economic windfall for both countries would be massive. Each World Cup match generates tens of millions in local economic activity through hotels, restaurants, transportation, and merchandise sales. If Canada and Mexico can capture even half the matches that European teams refuse to play in the US, we're talking about billions in additional revenue. Tourism boards in both countries are already quietly preparing marketing campaigns targeting European football fans. But here's the really clever part. Carney's diplomatic channels with European leaders are creating this safe haven narrative that makes the boycott seem reasonable rather than petulant. He's not saying boycott the US because we hate Trump. He's saying play your matches in stable, welcoming countries that respect international law and diplomatic norms. The logistics actually work in Canada and Mexico's favor too. European teams would prefer shorter travel distances anyway. Flying from London to Toronto is easier than flying to Los Angeles. The time zone differences are more manageable. The visa requirements are less complicated. From a purely practical standpoint, relocating European matches to Canada and Mexico makes sense even without the political considerations. FIFA officials are reportedly having emergency meetings about contingency plans, and those meetings keep coming back to the same conclusion. If they lose European participation, the tournament becomes financially unviable. But if they can relocate European matches to Canada and Mexico while keeping the rest of the tournament in the US, they might salvage the commercial relationships that make the World Cup profitable. This creates a fascinating dynamic where Canada and Mexico emerge as the real winners, regardless of what happens. If European teams play in the US, Canada and Mexico still host their originally scheduled matches. But if European teams boycott US venues, Canada and Mexico capture additional matches and become the heroes who saved the tournament. It's a win-win scenario that Carney and Mexican officials clearly anticipated. Conclusion: the new World Cup reality. FIFA just admitted they can't guarantee basic fan access to their own tournament. That's not a hosting issue, that's a complete system failure. Drop a comment on whether you think European teams will actually follow through on these boycott threats.